Welcome to our episode this week. And I'm talking about something fun that's not technical at all, but is super valuable for show hosts, especially if they do interview style shows. We call these chat shows, we call these conversation shows. The point is, if your show is the kind of show where you regularly talk to a guest that you are very interested in building a relationship with, I want you to listen because we're talking about the power of networking as a show host when you're podcasting. And this is something I've referenced maybe in other videos, but like the whole video this week is about this because I see it all the time when people come into the studio or when I'm producing a remote recording. When it's done well, it's dynamite. And when it's not done well, it's a huge missed opportunity to build your network while hosting a podcast. So let's talk about some basics really quick. If you are a podcast host or a show host that does a regular program full of conversations or interviews, you have a chance to spend 30, 60 minutes with someone in an uninterrupted fashion, kind of better than a first date. You've heard me say that before. And if you end the conversation and say goodbye, you miss this huge opportunity to continue to build that relationship that you just nurtured during that conversation that was focused and intimate and thoughtful and something you were both present to and cared about. You miss the chance to build on that connection by spending several minutes after the interview actually chatting about the other things you're up to. Now, this may seem really simple, but I can't tell you how many times I've been coaching a client, a show host, and I'm like, hey, make sure if at all possible to end the interview such that you have enough time to chat with your guest after 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. Like, people don't have all the time in the world, but if you know they said, hey, I only have an hour and a half, I have a hard stop, I have to leave at 2 p.m., finish that conversation by 1:30 so that you can chat. And here's what you should talk about. After you finish a conversation, whether you're doing it remotely or in person, I want you to ask your guest, like, hey, what are you up to? What's most important to you right now? What big projects do you have coming up? And another way to say this is, how can I support you? What do you have going on? Can I connect you with anyone? Do you want me to share to my audience anything that you want to promote? This is a really generous thing, but it needs to be genuine. Like, don't ask someone you don't care about. Hopefully you wouldn't have someone like that on your show. It is so generous to be interested in your guest's stuff and to figure out what matters to them. You might think it's all about their new book, and it probably is, but if you don't ask, you may never find out that in addition to the book, they have this big charity event coming up that they're super passionate about, that they're looking for sponsors, or they're looking for a connection to a certain kind of speaker, or they just want you to come, or they're asking if you'll, maybe sell some tickets or give away some tickets. Like, there may be some project that they're really passionate about that you have no idea about until you ask. And that's where the networking comes in. So I always like to say, start off with asking how you can support them. What do they have going on? What matters to them right now? Maybe what their year looks like. Like, what's your big thing this year? Or do you have something exciting coming up that I can cheer you on? Like, just be a good friend. Like, be a good peer. Be a good supporter. And then generally, like in the course of that conversation, they'll often ask you, like, yeah, what about you? How can I support you? What do you have going on? So obviously it's a great opportunity for you to share how they can support you. Maybe it's sharing the show. Maybe it's introducing you to other great guests that they might know that you might not. But it could also be something, I've seen this happen many times, where maybe it's something that came up during the recording, or maybe it's something that they tell you about that they're into. If you realize you have a really common passion or interest over the same thing, wow, what an amazing time to explore a collaboration. Maybe there's an opportunity for you two to partner together, not maybe in a really big formal way, but like maybe it's you co-host an event together, or you speak on the same stage, or you put a panel together. Maybe it's that you want to do like an Instagram live and like continue the conversation you had, but maybe you're sharing it with their audience. Maybe there's something bigger. Maybe you realize because you're chatting and you're asking about each other's interests and priorities and businesses and goings on, and you realize like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to like host a retreat together, or to write a book together, or, the list goes on and on and on. Maybe build a course together. Like, maybe there is a business opportunity, but maybe it's something really fun. Like, you love to run, I love to run, like, let's go run a race together. This is what I've seen happen time and again, usually post conversations. Sometimes it happens before, which is why I always tell clients, build buffer time in before the interview and after the interview. Tell them to meet you and plan on maybe 10 to 15 minutes of chatter before you start recording. You could call that pre-interview, but you could also call it networking. And we've talked about this in other videos, kind of like how to really prep your guest properly to have a great interview. So some of this can happen beforehand. Obviously, if you already know them pretty well, you're probably catching up. But after, I don't want you to skip that, because it's the best time to figure out how you can support each other, opportunities for collaboration, maybe just opportunities to do things that you didn't even know about. Maybe there's a really cool event coming up that you would never have heard about, but they know about and they're inviting you. I've seen this so many times, and that's how I learned that it works. So this is a bit of a quick tips video today, but it's so important, and it's one of the easiest things you can do as a show host to build your network, develop great relationships with your guests, show up with a really generous spirit, and just build a reputation for being a kind, generous person, which we need so much more of. Isn't that what we all want our reputation to be? And it also is some of the coolest opportunity generation moments that I see. So often people are like, hey, how did that thing come about? That big event or that huge book or that big show or that amazing whatever collaboration. If they know that, is one of my clients who was involved. And oftentimes my answer is oh yeah, well, that started right after a podcast conversation when they were talking about it, and the idea came, and then it became a thing. So I'm just giving you an inside look into something that I see work really, really well. Obviously, it starts with booking great guests on your show who you care about and you like and you want to get involved with. And secondarily, it is a little bit of planning and a lot of generosity and a lot of being genuinely interested in someone and what they're up to. So, quicker video today, hopefully really valuable. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. We'll have a new video for every week for show host tips. And I'll talk to you soon.